Okay, so hello. I apologize for being so late. I literally just jump off the plane. So I thought what I'd like to do is talk a little bit, but I'd like to have some questions and answers too, because I think people come to things with things they want to ask about their own career, their own writing, whatever. So feel free to ask all kinds of questions about publishing. I wanted to talk to you about something that you don't probably hear very much at writers' conferences. Being a writer can be very hard. It can be a struggle sometimes. Being an editor can be really hard. Being an agent, it's a lot of hard work. But I think the main thing for me is joy. I think joy is a very important quality. That's what I wanted to talk about, the joy in writing and publishing, from my point of view. And to start, I wanted to read from one of my very favorite books, The Secret Garden. So I'm going to read a little bit, and then at the end you'll see where I'm going with this. But I think this kind of gives a sense. To me, in The Secret Garden, to me the main quality that comes through is the quality of joy. I don't know any children's books that just spill over with joy. Joy for life, joy for living, joy in family, joy in friends. But I think it relates to publishing and to writing. So I wanted to start with this. Okay. Frances Hodgson Burnett was an American-born, British-raised writer. She was known for writing what would be called women's fiction. She was very popular. She had quite an unhappy marriage. She had several children, or one child at least. There was a book written about her life called Waiting for the Party. And the theme of the biography is that here's a woman who had wealth, fame, but she never felt like she arrived. She was always waiting for the party to begin. She wrote, after she was a success, her first children's book in 1886, Little Lord Fauntleroy, about a little boy whose father has died. So it's he and his mother. And he calls his mother Dearest, because that's what the father used to call the wife. And for years afterwards, little boys in the US and in England, I'm sure, hated the book because the lead character wore a velvet jacket with a lace collar. The boy had long curly hair, which would be hugely embarrassing to anyone, even in the late 1800s. But it was a huge success. It was a bestseller, it became a movie. Her next book for children was The Secret Garden, published in 1911. And it's the one book that she's known for. All the adult novels she wrote, the plays, book reviews, everything are pretty much forgotten, but The Secret Garden endures. And I think it's because it's not that she's a great writer, she's a very good writer, she's a good storyteller. But what she did was she took the universal metaphor of a garden and made it something really special in this book. I mean, the garden is, of course, a biblical symbol. It's in many cultures around the world. In the 60s, there was a book called My Secret Garden, which was a book about female sexuality. So the garden can symbolize all kinds of things. But I think in The Secret Garden, Frances Hodgson Burnett really wrote a genius book using this metaphor. Okay, so here are just a few pages from this book, but it relates to publishing and writing. You'll see in a few minutes. Okay, so Mary Lennox has just arrived from India. Her parents have both died of cholera. She's sent to England to live with her Archibald Craven, her uncle, who doesn't even know her and isn't even there when she arrives. She's sent to live in this huge mansion with beautiful grounds, lovely gardens. And she's heard about a secret garden that was closed ever since Archibald Craven's wife has died. It was locked. She died in the garden on a swing. She fell and she died a couple of days later. So the garden's been locked for 10 years. Okay, so Mary is determined, this self-centered, feisty, mean-spirited, grumpy, unattractive little girl. She finds this garden, and the effect on her is astounding. Okay. Mary Lennox had heard a great deal about magic in her Aya's stories, and she always said that what happened almost at that time was magic. One of the nice little gusts of winds rushed down the walk, and it was a stronger one than the rest. It was strong enough to wave the branches of the trees, and it was more than strong enough to sway the trailing sprays of untrimmed ivy hanging against the wall. Mary had stepped close to the robin, and suddenly the gust of wind swung aside some loose ivy trails, and suddenly still she jumped toward it and caught it in her hand. This she did because she had seen something under it, a round knob, which had been covered by the leaves hanging over it. It was the knob of a door. She put her hands under the leaves and began to pull and push them aside. Thick as the ivy hung, it nearly was a loose and swinging curtain, though some had crept over wood and stone. Mary's hump began to thump, and her hands to shake a little in her delight and excitement. The robin kept singing and twittering away and tilting his head from on one side as though he was as excited as she was. What was this under her hands, which was square and made of iron and her fingers found a hole in? It was the lock of a door which had been closed 10 years, and she put her hand in her pocket, drew out the key, and found it fitted the keyhole. She put the key in and turned it. It took 2 hands to do it, but it did turn. And then she took a long breath and looked behind her up the long walk to see if anyone was coming. No one was coming. No one ever did, it seemed, and she took another long breath because she could not help it, and she held back the swinging curtain of ivy and pushed back the door, which opened slowly, slowly. Then she slipped through it and shut it behind her and stood with her back against it, looking about her and breathing quite fast with excitement and wonder and delight. She was standing inside the secret garden. It was the sweetest, most mysterious-looking place anyone could imagine. The high walls which shut it in were covered with the leafless stems of climbing roses, which were so thick that they were matted together. Mary Lennox knew they were roses because she had seen a great many roses in India. All the ground was covered with the grass of a wintry brown, and out of it grew clumps of bushes, which were surely rose bushes if they were alive. There were numbers of standard roses, which had spread their branches so that they were like little trees. There were other trees in the garden, and one of the things which made the place look strangest and loveliest were the climbing roses that had run all over them and swung down long tendrils which made light swaying curtains. And here and there they had caught at each other at a far-reaching branch and had crept from one tree to another and made a lovely bridges of themselves. There were neither leaves nor roses on them now, and Mary did not know whether they were dead or alive, but their thin gray or brown branches and sprays looked like a sort of hazy mantle spreading over everything, walls and trees and even brown grass, where they had fallen from their fastenings and run along the ground. It was this hazy tangle from tree to tree which made it look all so mysterious. Mary thought it must be very different from her other gardens, which had not been left at all by themselves so long, and indeed it was different from any other place she had seen in her life. "How still it is," she whispered. "How still." Then she waited a moment and listened at the stillness. The robin who had flown up to his treetop was still as all the rest. He did not even flutter his wings. He sat without stirring and looked at Mary. "No wonder it's so still," she whispered. "I'm the first person who has spoken in here for 10 years. She moved away from the door, stepping as softly as if she was afraid of awakening someone. She was glad that there was grass under her feet and that her steps made no sounds. She walked under one of the fairy-like gray arches between the trees and looked up at the sprays and tendrils which formed them. "I wonder if they're all quite dead," she said. "Is it all quite a dead garden? I wish it wasn't." It was as if she had been Ben Weatherstaff, she could have told whether the wood was alive by looking at it, but could only see there were gray or brown sprays and branches, and none showed any signs of even a tiny leaf bud anywhere. But she was inside the wonderful garden, and she could come through the door under the ivy at any time, and she felt as if she'd found a world all her own. Okay, so that's the secret garden. The first thing you notice is the stillness. There has to be stillness to find the secret garden, because if you're not still, you can't see or hear what's really there. Secondly, it may appear as though everything is dead, but in fact, it's coming to life. And the third thing you notice, if you have read the book at the very end, when the garden is in full bloom, it's a great joy to everybody. Everyone is touched by it. So remember those 3 elements, because that's going to be important at the end of my speech. Okay. So what I would say is joy is the soil in which books are grown. From the writer to the agent, from the editor to the book designer and the printer, finally the bookseller to the reader, joy is what makes this wonderful mechanism of book creation operate properly. What a joy it is to get a good book idea. It arrives unbidden, without fanfare, yet full of possibility and unlimited potential. There's a rightness to a good idea, isn't there? It's kind of like when you go shopping and you see something you just know someone's gonna love. You don't even question it. You buy it and you're so excited. It's the same way when you get a great idea for a book. You just know it's gonna be a book. It's gonna be published. People are gonna love it. It's just, there's a rightness. An agent can spot talent a mile away. It's like when I was in that coffee shop reading A Glimpse Is All I Can Stand by Carol Lynch Williams. I finished reading that book and I just had shivers. And it was not just because it was 20 below outside and I was drinking hot chocolates inside. Do you know, that night I did not sleep a wink. I was awake all night. I was so excited about that book, thinking, oh my gosh, I can sell this book. I know exactly where to sell this book. It's going to be such fun. That's the kind of joy that you have as an agent. You know, an agent doesn't, like an editor is paid a salary. An agent doesn't get a salary. An agent only gets a commission. So if you sell a book, you get a percentage of the money made. But until that, whether it takes a month, a year, 5 years, you don't earn anything. So often joy is all that you're running on. No, literally, it's not. You laugh. You know, sometimes, well, I'll tell you some stories as we go along, but sometimes there's an auction, sometimes there's more than one publisher who's interested. So it's a very joyful thing. Okay, the next step is an editor. An editor is going to rejoice that they found a new writer like Carol. Although Carol had, I think, 7 books published prior. So it wasn't her first book, but it was her first book with me. But sometimes, you know, it's a brand new writer that I've discovered. So, you know, an editor, just imagine, they're so excited to have a new author on their list. So they can't wait to get to the acquisition meeting, the editorial meeting, and say, oh, I've got this great book I want to buy. I can probably sell this many copies. They have to convince the publisher, the business manager. Sometimes, again, for an editor, you know, having been at some big houses like Simon & Schuster and HarperCollins, it can be really brutal. To go into the acquisition meeting with the business manager saying, oh yeah, are you sure you're really going to sell 10,000 copies? You know, are people really going to buy this book about this topic at this age level? So sometimes an editor feels like their joy in the book is the only thing they have to go on. So joy is actually a very important quality. The design staff, the printer, the marketing staff, sales reps, they all kind of join in this kind of joyful excitement about this book. There's an experience, and actually it's also with Carol, and she didn't pay me to say this, but when a publishing house is all on board with a book, I mean, that's what you want to happen. Carol wrote another book called The Chosen One. I sold it to St. Martin's Press. Okay, this has never happened before with me. We were called, Carol flew on to New York. She came to a meeting. I met her. We went into the meeting. It wasn't just the editor who was at the meeting. There were like 20 people there, and this has never happened before. There was the publisher, the senior vice president, the business manager, the sales rep, the designer. There were 20 people there, and they had all, now this is unusual too, they had all read the book. They all loved the book, and they're all excited. That's what you want. You want that kind of joy about a book. And they all were so excited. That's what you want as an author. And that's only happened to me one time. Okay, the next step is the bookseller. Imagine a bookseller finding a book that they can really champion, that they can go out into the store and talk up to the people, you know, coming in to buy books. It's really a joy to find a new author or a new book by an already established author. It's a joy to put that book on your shelf and have the cover that so everyone can see it. You know, I was up in Williamstown, Massachusetts, and I bought a book from the children's bookseller. It was a book seller that sold all kinds of books, but the children's book person was there. I picked up a book, and when I went to buy it, she kissed, I kid you not, she kissed the book goodbye. It's a little extreme, but I think, that kind of joy is also good. So we've gotten through the publishing house, up to the bookseller, the buyer. The finished book, I've been in the business 35 years now, but when I see a finished book, it's like a miracle. It's like, oh my gosh, here's this book. It's, you can hold it in your hand, you can look at the jacket, you love the typeface, the paper, you want to smell it. I mean, it's so exciting to feel. If any of you have had books or are going to have books published, you'll know it is a true joy. I would say a book is joy manifest. I think maybe that's a good way how to describe a book. To think about all the time it took, the effort, the compromise, the patience, everything to get that book to that form, it truly is a joy. Joy really is, I think, the one quality that carries through from beginning to end. I mean, there are many excruciating moments, when the agent's trying to get a little bit more money from the editor, when, we see sketches for cover and maybe we don't love it. There are many moments along the way that maybe have a little bit of stress involved, maybe the copy editing, but really joy, I think, is what carries you along like a beautiful river. About 10 years ago, it's actually 11 years ago now, I was walking to work at HarperCollins, and I was thinking, gosh, this really isn't fun. I don't know, I had a really heavy feeling, and I remember thinking, wait a minute, this is children's books, this should be fun, what is going on? So I'll spare you all the details, but I ended up resigning, but at that point, I became an agent. So I kind of found my joy again. I think what was going on, as an editor at HarperCollins, I was executive editor, I had to bring in $1 million worth of revenue every year. So it really wasn't just about the joy of finding a great book, it was like, how much money can I make for the company? What if I don't make $1 million worth of revenue? It's very stressful. I could tell you stories for hours about what goes on behind the scenes. But anyway, so becoming an agent became a joyful thing. So for me, joy is an important quality. It's not easy to capture. Have you ever noticed, like, when something happens in your life, maybe something in your family, something at work, something in the world, joy is always the first thing to go. You're at a barbecue, having a great time, you get some bad news, immediately you sink. It's interesting, joy is the first thing to go away. But what I would like to say is I think joy is actually one of the most important qualities, because joy is transcendent. It lifts you up. I would say any phase that materialism takes, it's always dulling, it's always deadening. And I think to kind of confront that on a daily basis, particularly if you're involved in writing or publishing, to fight this almost surmountable kind of heaviness that comes in our dystopic world, I think joy, transcendent joy, is what we all need. You turn on the TV, there's bad news. Think about how many dystopian novels there are written, particularly for teens. I think there's a place, it's a genre, but I personally don't look for books like that. I think books for teens, I think we need to give hope, even with a sad story. There needs to be hope at the end, because I think teens need that. We all need that. Okay, if you look in Webster's dictionary, there are 3 definitions of joy. Number 1, a feeling of great happiness. 2, something or someone that gives joy to someone. And then 3, success in doing, finding, or getting something. So I would say the type of joy that I'm talking about that we all need is the first kind. I think joy is really indigenous to each one of us, whether you really feel that way or not. I think it's there. I think it needs to be dug out, but I think it's there. I think it's a childlike quality. I think we have it more, or first when we're children. I think it's our real nature. I think the second definition, I think if something or someone is required to call it forth, I don't think that's the real transcendent, lasting joy that we really need. That's something else. Okay, so I'm going to propose something, and this, I know it sounds tangential, but it's actually related to publishing and writing. And I have an assignment for all of you. Take one day, or part of a day, and try to find as much joy in it as possible. Sometimes joy starts with gratitude. Maybe that's a way to start. Gratitude for every meal, or for every kind thing that someone says to you. Gratitude for anything good you hear about anyone, anywhere. Not just for yourself, but for kind of an impersonal joy for others. Celebrate anything that benefits another person. Celebrate anything good you see in the world. What's interesting is, as you do this, and I've done this consistently, or I've tried to consistently, as joy blossoms within you, you'll find that you become more rigid. You'll become less rigid. Whoops, you'll become less rigid. You'll become more forgiving, more broad-minded. Maybe you decide to give yourself permission to be happy. Maybe you do something you really enjoy. Or maybe you'll find you're less judgmental of others. Maybe you'll even be more appreciative of others. Joy is expansive, encompassing, and strong. I dare you to try it. So this is what I'd like to say to you. The secret garden that I read about, it's not just in a golden age of 1911. It's not just in an exotic location, maybe the tropics or in some garden in England somewhere. The secret garden is here and it's now. And the secret garden is you, each one of you. So find that joy and cultivate it. It may take some stillness in your heart to find it. It may seem like everything in your life is dead or not alive or not too exciting, but it's coming to life. And when you find it and you cherish it, it will come to life. And when it's in full bloom, it'll be a wonder to behold. And it'll be a blessing to everybody. So that's my message. Thank you. Okay, so I've got 35 years of experience in publishing, so I know a lot of stuff. And if I don't know, I'll tell you. But questions about writing, about publishing, about what current trends are, or about your own writing, the floor is open. So however long we have. So yes.
I guess what do you see the current trends as being?
Okay.
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Okay. What are current trends in publishing right now? I know children's and teens the best, so that's what I'll talk about. It's changing every day. I have a funny story. When I was at HarperCollins as editor, I came into an editorial meeting one week and they said, okay, princess books are hot. So we all need to go find princess books. So even if it wasn't a princess in the book, somehow it became a princess book. Stick a princess on the cover because princess books are selling. I mean, it was ridiculous. So the next month, princess books were out. Okay, so trends, as you can see, change. Okay, current trends. I would say fantasy adventure is starting to slow down. I think nonfiction in picture books and in chapter books, longer books, is hot. I think it's because of Common Core curriculum, or I think there's more money for schools and libraries now. Let's see, contemporary stories for teens. I think vampires and werewolves are kind of on the way out. I would say contemporary stories are in. I would say diversity, and diversity can mean anything from books about Latinos, about Black culture, gay and lesbian characters, Asians. Diversity in any meaning of the word is what people are looking for. So that's what I would say is hot right now. Chapter book series, not chapter book, one-off books. I would say that's it. I mean, in the adult world, I guess what has changed is celebrity books, of course, are always a big deal. Advancers are not as big as they used to be. So if you're a movie star, you're not going to get as much money as you would have 10 years ago. But, I mean, there are always going to be Kardashian books. There are always going to be, you know, one more book about Justin Bieber. So that's what the trends are, children and kids. Yes?
What's your favorite middle grade novel you've read within the last year?
Ooh, that's a good question. Well, first of all, I read The Secret Garden every year. That's extreme. Yeah. My favorite middle grade novel of all time, and it's not new, is Sarah Plain and Tall by Patricia McLaughlin. I think it's a perfect book. If I were teaching high school or even college English, I would take it and say, this is a perfect sentence. This is a perfect paragraph. Let's see. I read Egg and Spoon by Gregory Maguire. Did you like that? I thought that was fun. Green Glass House I read last year. I liked very much. Did you read that? What else? There's a book that just came out, which I'm dying to read. I haven't read it yet. It's by, I think the author's name is Sarah Pennypacker. Yeah. It has a fox on the cover. Yeah. Pack. Yeah, that looks delicious. I have to say, I mean, I love all books, but I love middle grade the best. No offense, but I do love middle grade. So those are my favorites. Yeah. Have you read anything recently that you loved?
Oh gosh, I'm kind of on a Rebecca Stead kick right now.
Yes.
I love all her work.
Yes. Oh, you know who I love? Oh, yes. This is my favorite. Jonathan Auxier. Have you read him? The Midnight Gardener. It's fabulous. He is like the new, how do I even describe him? I'm as excited about him as I was about Francesca Lia Bloch in the 80s. I think he has a fresh voice. I think he's like Charles Dickens. I think he's a great storyteller. He wrote a book called Peter Nimble and His Fantastic Eyes. The sequel is coming out in April this year. Oh, read Jonathan Auxier. He is great. Have you read West of the Moon? By Margie Price. She's one of my clients. Her most recent book was called The Bamboo Sword. Her first novel, which she won the Newbery Honor for, was called Heart of a Samurai. The sequel is called The Bamboo Sword, which came out last year. She is a great middle grade writer. Someone else? Yes?
What advice would you give for someone wanting to be a literary agent?
Be very strong. Okay, I mean, it's a great job. I mean, I think you have to love literature with a capital L more than anything, because number one, there's no salary. There's no guarantee you're going to sell a book. It's very difficult in this climate. But if you love books, it's kind of like being an actor. If nothing can stop you, you're going to do it, and you'll do it really well. You have to have that passion. I didn't know I was going to be a literary agent, but I kind of think everything I've done has led me up to it, and I've had some successes. I've had failures too, but I've had a lot of successes. I have 2 Penn Award winners. One of them is here. I have a Newbery Honor winner. I have an Edgar Award winner. I have New York Times bestseller. I've published, I think, 5 novels written in verse, which nobody thinks you can do. I've published a lot of nonfiction recently. So I would say read a lot. I think it's mostly you've got to love books, and I think, talk to some agents, see what they do, kind of cultivate your own taste. What kind of books would you like to see published? I think, probably take literature courses. I think if you write yourself, it'll help you be appreciative of writers that you're going to be helping. So talk to me later.
Okay.
Yes?
So you mentioned that Frances
Burnett
was not a great writer.
Yeah.
She was a good writer.
Yes.
What is the difference? Mine is actually twofold. What is the difference between great and good writing in your opinion, and also who would you say is a great writer?
Ooh. Well, there are writers in this room, so that's a really tricky question. Fortunately, they're all fabulous. Okay. I think Frances Housen Burnett is a formula writer. She knows how to tell a story, which is great. She's a very good writer. But I think The Secret Garden transcends her talent by virtue of that beautiful central metaphor, which is universal. I think that was a genius idea. Okay. Well, I don't want to insult anybody.
We can take it.
What is great writing?
I think a good writer is someone who can get published, who gets through the door, can tell a story, and people enjoy reading them. I think a great writer is someone whose books live in your mind and you can't. Have you ever been to like a movie and you can't stop thinking about it? I mean, there's some movies that are not great and because they're so horrible you can't stop thinking about it. But you know the movie The Piano? The Jane Campion, she's an Australian director. I think that's a great movie. I think she created images which are so fresh and original you can't stop thinking about them. I think a great writer writes sentences and uses words and phrases that are impeccable, that you can't stop thinking about. I mean, I think Carol Lynch Williams is a great writer. I mean, there are a lot of YA writers who can tell really good stories that teens really love. But when you read a book of hers, I don't know how she does it, but the characters come alive on the page. There's something extra. So I guess I would say great writing is something extra. I don't mean it has to be pretentious, but it's got to have an integrity that, I mean, I think a book that is good but not great, it's kind of like a garment. You can take like a jacket. You can deconstruct a jacket and see how it's made. A great book, you can't see the seams. I've noticed like watching TV. I don't know if you remember the TV show called Dynasty from, it shows how old I am, but anyway, it's kind of like any soap opera. Well, it could be Downton Abbey or anything like that. But I remember watching Dynasty, and you could always tell near the end of a scene, someone would come through the door and you'd think, oh, wait a minute, something terrible is going to happen, which is going to move this scene to the next room. You could see the seams of how the drama was put together. A book that's not great, it's readable, but you can see the seams. You can see the effort that went into stapling it together so it hung, but it's not seamless. I mean, there's so many great children's books. Sarah Plain and Tall, I just think it's perfect. It was written as a picture book. I mean, I know about this because I had dinner one night with the author and with her editor, and we were talking. Sarah Plain and Tall started as a picture book, but when she was writing it, suddenly there was more to tell about the characters that you couldn't contain in 32 pages. So she developed it, and what she did was genius. She created a 53-page novel. It's really a novella. It had never been done before for children, but it's perfect. You couldn't add it or take away a word. It's perfect. So to me, a great book just is something, it's subjective, of course. What I think is great, you may not think is great, but I think it's the language, I think the integrity of it, and it's something that's universal. I think some books are bestsellers because they're trendy. There's an author from around this town who was a huge bestseller. I don't think she's a great writer. Pardon me for saying that. But she sold many copies. So, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with selling a lot of copies, but I think in terms of great writing, I think there's more to it. I think there's an integrity. Someone else. Yes?
I've heard it can be really hard to break into the market as a picture book writer. Do you have any advice for someone who's going to do that?
I don't think it's hard. I mean, I think...
Can you repeat that?
Yeah, the question was, is it hard to break into the picture book market? She heard that it was hard to break into that market. I don't think it's any harder than writing a novel, middle grade novel or YA novel. I think that the picture book market, well, like in the past, certainly 10 years, but maybe even more than that. I think 20 years ago, there were too many picture books published. I think 20 years ago, there was a real shift. I think that publishing, particularly children's books, used to be a kind of the gentleman's, it was called a carriage trade, kind of the gentleman's or gentle person's business. And I don't think that editors were held to strict rules in terms of budgets. So if a picture book went over budget, well, so what? It's a beautiful book. Kids are going to love it. Now it's very much bottom line oriented. So So the editor, who didn't really care about the profit and loss report, now has to report to a business manager who says, no, this is too expensive. I can't afford this book. I can't have it printed in Hong Kong. You know, we have to get either a bigger name or a bigger illustrator to justify spending this much money. Every book, you have to realize, is an investment. It's a thousands of dollar investment for a publisher. So, and publishers don't just give money away. So picture books, I think there are fewer picture books published these days, so it may be a little bit harder, but I think for me there's nothing better than getting a great picture book text. I get very excited. You know, there are agents who are more aggressive, who are taller, but really care about this. And I think after, you know, so many years, people trust my taste, and they'll at least take a look at something. There's this one agent when I was an editor who, when she called, I would run the other way. She wasn't exactly mean, but she was this very kind of old school agent. I never met her, but when she picked up the phone, I could hear her big bracelets jangling. Hello, and she was very kind of imperious, and I made an offer for a book from one of her authors, and she without even saying, "That's not enough money," or "No, thank you," she just hung up the phone. And I was a young editor. I was scared out of my shoes. So anyway, I'm not that kind of agent. So I think when people hear from me, they at least know that I'm, you know, pleasant to work with, and I probably have something good. So I don't know if that answers your question in a roundabout way. I don't think it's any harder than selling anything else. You don't have to be an illustrator to sell a picture book. If you write the text, that's great. If you do art and text together, that's even a rarer talent, but it shouldn't be hard to sell. The only thing that makes it hard to sell is publishers are buying fewer picture books. So I mean, I have a couple great picture books, and I haven't been able to sell them yet. I will, but it's just, you know, what's happened for me with picture books is sometimes the big houses, because they're doing fewer, I'll go to a smaller house and they're looking for books. So that's the only difference. I've sold 2 books recently in Europe. I sold a book to a Belgian publisher and one to a Swiss publisher. They will do, English language editions, but the primary house is in Europe. But, you know, 10 years ago I wouldn't have had to even think of that. So, yes.
What do you do if you represent someone and then they send you a manuscript that is in an area that you don't represent?
Then I would do my research and represent it. If I sign someone up, I will do an adult book with them. I will do, you know, whatever. Some agents only do very specific things, only adult romance or only picture books. I actually do everything. I've done some adult books, mostly children's and teens. But if one of my authors wanted to do an adult novel, then I would just do my research, find out who the editors were, and I would sell it. So it's very individual. Every agent is different. Yes?
Can you speak for a moment about the emerging adult market?
Kind of new adult?
Yes.
New adult? Yes. Sorry, I was just admiring your color. My suitcase is your same color that you're wearing. Teal is one of my favorite colors. Yes. Okay, I would say emerging adult or new adult, that's really a marketing term. You don't need to worry about that. I think several years ago, publishers had young adult novels that they thought, gosh, maybe we could sell this to an adult audience and sell more copies or even make more money. So I think new adult or emerging adult became kind of a thing, but I don't think it's really working. I think that good YA novels, well, like, do you remember the Princess Diaries? When I was at Simon & Schuster, well, actually, this is a funny story. When I was at Simon & Schuster, an editor, I was doing books for boys, and the manuscript for Princess Diaries came across my desk, and I said no. Which was actually good. I mean, I told Meg Cabot, you know, this is really adorable. I think it's good. I don't think I can do anything with this. It went to Harper, and of course, it became a huge bestseller, became 2 movies. So I passed on that, and I feel embarrassed now, but anyway, I lost my train of thought. What was the question? Oh yeah, emerging. Okay, yeah. So Princess Diaries was done in a rack-size adult paperback edition, and then a digest-size, bigger child size. So some books have dual editions. They'll do an edition for adults and one for teens. But I would say new adult, emerging adult, it's not really a thing, and it's not really selling. It doesn't really work. It's a marketing term. So, but I do think that good teen novels can be read by adults, and good adult novels can be read by teens.
Thank you.
Yes.
You talked about a good writer and a great writer.
Yeah.
What makes a great story?
You tell me. I mean, I think we all have stories to tell, and oh, do you want to hear a good quote? I think I have it with me. Yes, this is from Proust. I'm actually going to give this in a little talk tomorrow, but I thought it was so good. This is from Marcel Proust. The essential, the only true book exists already in each of us. The function and task of a writer are those of a translator. So translating the story of your life, your experiences, your passions, your failures, your successes, translate that into prose. That's what a good writer does. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that a good book is one, first of all, that's worthy of you, and also worthy of a reader. Sometimes you write things that may be good, but it really may not be for everyone to read. I think a good book is one that you have to tell, but it also is universal enough so people will read it and respond and enjoy it and get something out of it. I don't know. I mean, it's subjective, I guess. But I think universality, I think sometimes if something is too kind of limited in scope, maybe too regional, which is not to say you shouldn't be specific, but there's got to be a quality of the universal in it. I think sometimes people try to be really trendy, and there are a lot of cultural references, like names of movies or best-selling books or celebrities or something, but those date. I mean, in another year, who's going to remember that movie? Or in 10 years, who's going to remember that celebrity? So I would watch against doing too many trendy things, because trends change all the time. I mean, if you try to write a trendy book, by the time your book is published, that trend is gone. So that's the thing. Yes, way in the back.
This is kind of going back to trends. But as writers, obviously we don't write to make money. So how do we find the balance between writing what we know and writing well, but also keeping with the trends?
I can kind of hear what you're saying behind that is, should you write for profit or just write from your heart, right? I think that was kind of behind that. I think writing is not an easy job, and most writers, I can only think of one writer at the moment who writes full-time. But I was telling a friend of mine on the ride from the airport that it's actually not a bad thing. A famous writer told me once, she said, the things that take you away from your writing are the things that give you something to write about, whether it's your family, whether it's some crisis, whether it's school, whether it's a job that's very demanding. Sure, it takes it away from your writing time, but it gives you something to write about. So in 10 years or 2 months, whatever, that'll become, it goes into what Tolkien calls this pot of story that's always stirring and ingredients are being added all the time. So it is hard to make money at first. Your first advance may not be big. Sometimes there may be an auction, which means where more than one publisher is vying for your book, the price goes up and up. Getting $1 million is not necessarily the answer to your dreams, because if you get a big advance and the book doesn't sell really well, that might be the end for you, because no one's going to pay you $1 million for your next book. It does mean you have $1 million to live on, but you're looking for longevity as a writer. If you're looking for money, I guess that's good, but I think if you're looking for longevity as a professional working writer, go for a modest advance. Maybe the book will sell really well, and you'll get a lot of money in royalties. And sometimes you're going to be offered things. Somebody may say, I have this project, would you like to write? They'll pay you a nice sum of money. You have to ask yourself, do I want my name on that book? is that amount of money enough to make me take this money with my name in the book? In 20 years, am I going to be proud of that? You may be, and there's nothing wrong with making money, but I do think you need to think about your career. It's kind of like being in a movie. You may not want to take a role that makes you look really idiotic. In 20 years, you may not want your children seeing that movie, or you may not want that in your, life of, tribute 50 years later. So it's really a balance between working as an artist and the commerce end of it. But I think you can earn money. People who write children's books, for instance, once you have a number of books out there, you can do a lot of school visits. Some people have like a whole career doing school visits around the country or around the world, and you can make quite a lot of money giving speeches, talking to kids. Okay, now here's something. For every book that you write, there are 400 channels to make money with every book. Paperback book club rights, hardcover book club rights, film, TV rights, theme park rights. I mean, things you wouldn't even imagine. One of the books that I sold, some company sold in Japan some sake based on the book. Who knew? I mean, Harry Potter, there's the Harry Potter theme park at Universal Studios. So there are thwarted ways to make money on every book. So you could sell one book, but who knows? You could, for the very first novel that I sold for one of my authors, she got, I think, like $8,000 for an advance for a middle grade novel. So that's not great, but it's not terrible. She got $60,000 the next year for foreign language rights. So there are ways to make money. If you have an agent who's really on the ball, you can make money. So it is possible, but be patient. It takes time. And there are two kinds of writers. I think there are writers who kind of write by inspiration. You offer them a chance to write a book which could make a lot of money, but they can't do it because it's not in their heart. Some people can write on spec, and that's okay too. So there are kind of commercial writers, and then there are writers who are more the artiste, and they're both valid kinds of writers. So I guess you have to decide who you are too. Yeah.
When I went to the WIFYR conference last year, at the end of it, they talked about finding agents that you like and similar authors on Twitter. And so
Yes.
the idea of the platform and building platforms,
Yes.
it's changed a lot even in 10 years
Yes.
since it started here. So how important do you think that is for aspiring authors to have a web presence, to have a platform? Does it depend on your genre?
Well, yes, it does. Okay. I mean, I think some of the younger agents are going to feel differently about this than I do. I would say write a good book first. Having a platform doesn't really help you if you have nothing. It's kind of like putting a sign up but not having anything on the shelf to sell. I think you should write a great book. It's great to have a social media. Have a Facebook page, Instagram, Twitter, whatever, just so people know who you are, and maybe you can connect with other writers. But I do feel you should have something first. Write a great book. Then once you have a great book, maybe have a website. Twitter, when you get your first deal, put it on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, Yahoo, I sold my first book, and things like that. But I think having a platform, once you have a book in print, then it's really important, because what you're doing is partnering with a publisher to establish your presence. It used to be 30 years ago, you'd write a book, you'd hand it off, and the publisher would do everything. It's a much different world. It's very competitive. And so I think if you can help the publisher, really partner with the publisher to get your name out there, maybe talk to your local bookstore and set up a book signing. Maybe talk to your local radio station and do an interview. Anything you can do. I think that will be impressive to a publisher, that you're really working with them. I think when you can partner with a publisher, they really like that. And it really makes a difference. You can really, I mean, look at John Green, what he did. By the time his books, Fault in the Stars, he already had a presence. He already had a fan base. So he had an immediate bestseller. And now all his books. That's very smart. And I'm not saying you have to spend hours and hours doing it, and you may not feel comfortable doing it, but do whatever you can, particularly with YA. I think it's very important with YA authors to have a presence, because I think YA is very competitive, even more than middle grade or picture books. I think a YA author should have a book every year if possible. I think you need a win presence. You should be out there. You should be going to conferences. You know, you should be doing webinars. You should be doing all kinds of things. So, yes?
What's the outlook for boy-focused YA?
I think it's very important. Editors are always saying books for boys don't sell. I say I will help you sell that book because there need to be books for boys. I think middle grade is easier. I think chapter books are easier. I think there's a prejudice among publishers for books for boys because they don't sell as well as books for girls at that age. But I think there's a need, and I will help you sell it. But I think, I mean, conventional wisdom is girls are better readers, are more, I think, you know, for teenagers, I think a lot of teens, they may be reading, but they may be doing, you know, games. They may not traditional, maybe graphic novels. Not traditional books. But I do think there's a need, and I think there's a place for books for boys. But it is a little bit harder. But you know, they always say poetry doesn't sell, and I've sold a lot of poetry. So I have a great new poetry book coming out this fall called Catching the Storyfish. It's by an African-American author. It's great. It's going to win awards. And they said no one can do it, and I did it. And so that's my goal, to do things they say I can't do. Any more questions? Yes?
So it's kind of a detour from what we've been talking about, but I'm interested in working as an editor.
Great.
I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about like what skills or experience is important for people looking to get hired in that field.
Okay, I think that it's easier to be hired as a young. When I left HarperCollins, I was executive editor, and my first thought was, I'll just go work somewhere else. I've been around, you know, for a number of years. People know me. There were no jobs at that level at that time. In fact, what happened was when I left, HarperCollins then fired all the executive editors, everyone at my level. So I think for a young editor, it's actually easier. I think you should be a voracious reader, read everything, know the market. There are small publishers, there are big publishers. So kind of get to know the different houses and you know what kinds of things do they publish, what kinds of writers are they looking for, maybe intern at a publishing house and get a sense of, you know, you may be stuffing envelopes or answering the phone, but you'll be hearing deals going on. I think being an editor, I think that the craft of editing is slowly, I wouldn't say disappearing, but it's a real art, and I think there aren't a lot of great editors out there. A lot of editors are spending time doing deals, running around to meetings. The real editor who can look at a manuscript with just a kernel of talent and say, that's the writer I want to work with. The person who can fan those flames and get a great book out of that book with just a kernel of promise, that's a great editor. So there's a real need for editors. So it's something I think you should pursue. Yeah. Yes?
Along those lines, what's your personal agenting style? Are you highly editorial agents?
Yeah, the people who come to me know that I used to be an editor. There's some agents who are purely business. I have this friend who's an agent, and she will work with you in one book, and then that's it. I mean, she may work with you again at some time, but I want to work with someone's career. So when I meet you, I don't want to just see one good book. I want to see one great book and at least something in the works. With a picture book, I want to see at least 2 great picture books, because I want to kind of know where your head is. Where do you see your career going? Do you want to do an adult book as well? Do you want to do picture books and novels? Do you only want to do novels? I want to kind of help shape your career. Like one of my clients, I mapped out his next 4 books. His first book was about a gay teen, and I felt it was a real groundbreaking book, but I was afraid if he did another book with the same characters, he'd be pigeonholed as the writer of gay novels, which is okay too, but I felt he had a very broad talent. So the next book he did was a mystery novel, totally different. His third book went back to the high school story with a gay teen, but the fourth book was totally different. So I really mapped out his career. That's what I want to do with my clients. I want to help them shape their careers, because a career is a very difficult thing in these days. You don't want to, publishers you see want a franchise. They want you to have a mystery novel every fall. You're going to crank out another mystery novel or another romance novels. I want you to be an artiste. So I want you to do whatever you want, and I will be your champion. So I want to help you do, as an artist, what you need to do. A publisher just wants, a product. So yes, if you want to just thrash around ideas, I will help you. If you want to send me a finished book, that's okay too. But I have a more editorial background. Some people are more business. Some people are not particularly friendly. They're all business. I tell people it's like shopping for daycare. You don't leave your babies with just anyone. You want someone. You don't have to be best friends, but you have to at least like them and trust them with your children. It's the same thing. I think an agent is like a GPS system. A good agent should focus in not just on the right publisher, but the right editor within the right publisher. Sometimes I get it right the first time. Sometimes it takes me a while to zero on the right person. But that's my job. But there are all kinds. There are agents who are very young, inexperienced, but they have great instincts, and they're very hungry. They'll help you. Some agents have a lot of experience. They have a lot of successes. They can help you. So, and then everything in between. So there are a lot of great people out there. And agents are just people. Don't be afraid with interviewing people, sending an email, or picking up a phone. Shop around for someone you feel comfortable with. Okay? How are we doing for time, by the way? Are we okay?
You're good. Some of the students have to go to other classes.
Yeah. Okay.
Till 7:30. You've got to 7:30. You've got plenty.
Okay. I'm famished. I don't know about you.
Everybody go home.
No. Did you have a question?
When you're reading query letters? Oh, sorry.
Yes. No, that's okay.
When do you stop reading a query letter? Like when are you done?
I read the whole query letter. I'm going to sneak a chocolate. Do you mind?
Yeah. Yes, I do.
Oh, is that rude?
No.
Okay. I did have something on the plane. I had a cracker. No, seriously. Okay, so a query letter. I don't really like query letters. I'd rather read a first chapter of a novel or a whole picture book. I know that you're supposed to write query letters and I'm supposed to read them. So I read the whole query letter, but what gets my attention is a snappy title, a concept I've never seen before, the way you use language that I think is interesting. Maybe you've traveled to France and you're writing about your experience. That would catch my attention. Like, my background is musical theater, so if you've done theater, that interests me, I want to read this. Something that jumps out at me. With a first chapter, I don't care if there are typos, but if it doesn't really grab my attention, if I feel like I've read it before, but I haven't read it before, I will read maybe a page and then I'll stop and say, you know what, thanks very much, but this really isn't for me. Or if it's a genre that I'm really not interested in, like erotica, I probably would say, you know what, I'm not the right one for that. I'm sure it's great. There's some things I don't do, types of books I don't do. Well, that too. Oh my God, I'm blushing. Need some water. A query letter, I will read the whole thing. But some things, a picture book, I'll probably read it, but I can usually, from my experience, my very first job as an editor, we would read 200 manuscripts a week, every editor. So I could tell within like a paragraph if the writing is good or not. So that's a very finely tuned skill I have. I can tell right away in a sentence, someone's ease with language, whether, they have a fresh voice or whether, they're trying to imitate someone else. So I can tell right away. And it may be that it's good, but I can usually tell if it's not for me. think of it this way. There are 700 versions of Cinderella around the world. No, literally, in every culture there's some kind of a Cinderella story, but not in your voice. So I could read like 10 Cinderella stories in one day, but one of them, I'm reading some manuscripts this week. I think I read 26 manuscripts. There was one that I thought, ooh, now that's different. I don't know what it is. There's something, it's the language, it's the voice, sometimes it's the concept. I can't describe it. An agent and his editors are like connoisseurs. It's like the way you can tell a great cheese or a great wine or a great piece of chocolate or something. I don't know. There's something in me that just responds, and I can't tell you exactly what it is. Yes?
Sorry, just wanted to ask one more question.
Ooh.
You had said that, like, with picture books, you like to see more than one.
Sorry, I was thinking about the chocolate.
So with picture books, you said you like to see more than one. How do you send to you at that time? You
No.
just request more if
Yeah.
you want at that point?
Yeah, what I meant was, I want to read one manuscript at a time. If I like it, I might say, oh, do you have any others you could send me? But when I sign someone up as a client, I have to know I have to have read a second that I really think is as strong, because I kind of feel like, well, what if I sell one book and that's it? I need to know there's a career there that I'm, championing. But I would send one manuscript at a time. A mistake some people make is to send everything in their desk drawer that they've ever written. Even people who, if I sign someone up as a client, that's great, but don't send them all at once, maybe one at a time. Because it takes a while to sell a book, and plus I have 40 clients altogether, so I can't be, I mean, you're my favorite client at the time, Carol, but then I have 39 others that at other parts of the day or the week or the month, they're my favorite clients. So that's how it works. Does anyone have any questions about what an agent does, or? I have some funny stories. Do you have time to hear some stories? Okay. Okay. No, this is funny. All these wires, my goodness. Okay. You know what? The cinnamon in the chocolate was what was making me ooh and ah. I do love cinnamon. Okay. Okay. Now this is funny. Someone sent me the nonfiction picture book, which actually came out 2 years ago, and it did really well. Sent me a picture book, and let's see, how does this go? Okay, so I had this book that I thought would sell right away because it was kind of topical. It was nonfiction. Nonfiction is selling. So I sent it to one editor who passed on it, who I thought, oh, she's going to love this. She didn't love it. Okay, so she said no. She passed on it. Interestingly, and sadly, she went on sick leave. She left the manuscript on her desk on the top. Her boss, the publisher, came by, read it, loved it, picked up the phone, and made an offer on the spot for the book. So, moral quandary. Do I say, well, your editor already passed on this book, or do I say nothing? I said nothing. I sold the book to the publisher who had already said no to it. There's so many funny stories about how books sold. Okay. There's another book by someone in Utah who's not here today. When I read it, it was the best first novel I've ever read. I mean, it takes a while to write a novel and to get at ease with shaping a story, with creating characters. It's a real art to write a book. This was the first book that he wrote, and it was flawless. So I immediately called what I thought were all the best editors, said, you've got to read this fabulous book. And I had in my mind kind of where I thought the advance would be. I mean, for a middle grade novel, $10,000 is good. But I was thinking, because this is so good, maybe like $25,000 would be, that's hopeful. But okay, so I sent it around, And one publisher called me like 2 days later and said, Steve, we really like this. We're going to send this to a few more people, but we really like this. So then I called the other publisher and said, you know, there's a publisher who really likes this. I'm just saying, which is what you do. You know, you want to get, publishers love to compete with each other. So, so I was just, you know, throwing a little fuel on the fire, as it were, yes. So the next day, the first publisher said, Steve, the people really liked it. We're going to send it to a few more people, but we really like it. So I was thinking, oh, so maybe it won't sell at this level. Maybe it'll sell at this amount. But you know, you don't want to get too puffed up or, you know, let your imagination run wild. So 2 days later, the first publisher calls and said, we would like to make a preemptive bid, which means I take it off the table, I tell the other publishers, sorry, someone came in with so much money that it's no longer available. Okay, so they didn't offer this, and they didn't offer this. They offered this. Okay, so someone told me once, when you're an agent and you're making a deal, stand up, which for me is particularly useful, because you want to feel like a tall, strong agent. So they called and they made this offer, and it like knocked the wind out of me, and so my knees are knocking together, and I'm trying to sound like I do this every day. So they said, would this be enough? And so I said, oh yes, this sounds really nice. Let me call you back. So I called out, passed out on the floor. No, not really, but I felt like I was going to. Did, you know, the happy dance, whatever. Oh my gosh, you never, you know, but this is the kind of thing that you dream of. So they paid this ungodly amount for this very first novel. But who knew? But that's what an agent does. You know, you want to build up excitement. You never know if a book is going to sell for how much, but sometimes more than one publisher's interested, and so you can do all kinds of things. Another interesting story is, I had this book that it was written in verse. It was a gorgeous middle grade novel. I sent it to one editor who said, oh, I like this. Would the author be willing to do a revision? I have some ideas, some notes. So now, when you have an editor who's interested and they ask you to do a revision, always do a revision. But if you have an agent, I let them do one revision, no more. If they ask for another revision, I want a contract on the table with an offer. I will not let my authors do any more work without a firm offer, because I don't think it's fair. Okay, so the editor said, would the author be willing to do a revision? And I said, well, yes, of course. So give me the notes, I'll give them to the author, she'll do a revision. So she did the revision, she revised it, gave it to the editor. She liked it very much, but no, she didn't feel she could make an offer. So she said, would you be willing to do another revision? If we're anyone else, I would have said no, but I love the author, I love the book, I love the editor, I thought it was a perfect match. You see, being an agent is like being a yenta. You're a matchmaker. You know what a yenta is? So I thought it was a perfect match. So I said, okay, in this one case, I'll let you do one more revision, but then we want an offer on the table. She did the revision. Sadly, the editor said, no, sorry, it just doesn't work for me. Okay, so I thought that was it. Unbeknownst to me, over the next year, I guess several months, the author did another revision. I thought it was perfect. So my quandary was, do I go back to the first editor and say, I have another revision, I think you're going to love it, or do I go on and just say, you know what, she said no twice, to heck with her. So, you know, you never know how to do this, because it's always, you know, you have to kind of follow your whims sometimes. So I said, you know what, I'm going to go back to this editor. I just had lunch with her, and I knew she liked cats. This book was about a girl who wanted a kitten desperately. So I thought, you know, let's give her cat book. She read it, she loved it, and she made an offer on the book on the third try. So I don't usually do that, but that's what happened. So happy story. Oh, now here's another interesting story. As an agent, you really have to kind of use your wits. You never know. You know, there was a book that Carol wrote called The Chosen One, and I thought, oh my gosh, everyone's going to love this book. It's so timely. It's, you know, it's a great book. It's dramatic. It has great cinematic potential. So I thought of about 7 editors in New York, the top Y editors who I thought were going to love it. So I sent it out. And on a whim, I thought, this is an adult author whose books I really admire. Her name is Hope Dallin. She's at St. Martin's Press. She doesn't do books for teens. But I don't know. I feel like she should read this book. So I sent it to her, but also the other 8 editors. A couple days later, Hope Dallin calls me. She said, Steve, I don't know why you sent me this book. And in the same breath, she said, but I couldn't put it down. So even though the other publishers had it, they liked it, she was the one we went with because she loved it. And that's what you want. You want an editor who loves your book. So as a finale, what I will say is the job of the agent in your behalf is to find an editor who loves your book as much as your agent loves the book and loves you. So that's the goal. So I hope I've answered your questions. I hope it's been helpful and interesting, but it's been a pleasure for me to be here. Thank you so much.